Hi, my name is Amanda Bolus. I am a behavior technician here at the Dumb Friends League. Welcome to CAT Safe Animal Handling. So before we get into all the information about body postures and stuff, I do want to start with the 9 best practices. This is something that you may have heard from other shelters, just something that to keep in mind as you're working with all the different animals. So the first one is obviously talk softly to the animals. You want to use your inside voices. You know, some animals will respond to that higher pitch, but always start with a nice soft tone. Move at the animal's pace. We know some of your jobs are really busy and you have a lot of animals to clean, a lot of animals to medicate. But if you slow down with those that need it, you're gonna be able to make up a time with the other ones that are doing really well. Always use a carrier to transport a cat. So anytime you have to take a cat from one room to another, you definitely need to use a carrier. We do not want cats to accidentally slip out in the hallways and get free. And making sure that you're not holding cats in open areas, like up at the adoption lobby, is going to be really important as well. They always need to be safe and secure when they're moving around the shelter. Always use a slip leash and proper leash techniques when transporting a dog. So again, always making sure that you have some sort of secure hold on the dog so they don't get away from you. Only pick up dogs that are under 30 pounds. If they're over 30 pounds, they're not going to do well with that. To transport SMAMs, make sure you're holding on to them really well, holding them close to the body. Always keep animals away from your face. So we know it's easy to pick up those kitten puppies and want to snuggle with them, but we do want to make sure that we stay safe and we keep their face away from our face. In case they get scared, we don't want them biting us in the face. Always keep your hands away from the bellies of cats and dogs. And we're going to talk about why we don't want you, especially when it comes to cats, why we don't want you to pet their bellies. And then lastly, just remember behavior is fluid. And what that essentially means is behavior is always changing. What you see when you first work with an animal is not necessarily going to be the same in a couple minutes or 10 minutes, depending on how long you have to work with that animal. So always watching for changes in postures is really going to help keep you and the animal safe. Some other things to keep in mind is these animals here are under a lot of stress. So you guys may have animals at home that never experience these kind of things. So some of these behaviors that we see in a shelter are specific to them being in a shelter. So we'll just go through a few of these. So number of animals, just remember some of these animals have never seen another animal in their life, or they had a bad experience with an animal. So we want to make sure that when we're transporting them around, if they're around other animals, when we're outside with them, with dogs, just making sure that that number of animals is not playing that factor. Number of people, so remember you are not the only one who's going to interact with this cat in a specific day. So you want to make sure that you are going slow, like you said, because the next person who comes along, that animal may not do as well, or vice versa. You may come after someone else had just done something to the animal, and that cat may not do well because of that interaction. Noises, so as you walk through the shelter, you hear a lot of noises. We have our paging systems, we have pipes turning over, people talking, people playing music potentially. So that can cause a lot of stress to those animals as well. Smells, a lot of smells in the shelter, good and bad. We do got some good cleaning smells, trying to keep contagion down, but those smells are going to be really strong for animals and they may not deal with them as well. Other animal smells, so when animals are stressed, they do emit that stress pheromone, so they're going to be able to pick up on that. And then keep in mind your own smells. So in the morning when you're getting ready for work and you're putting on your favorite lotion, your favorite cologne, those smells may also be a little strong for the animal. Or after you use hand sanitizer and you go to, offer your hand to an animal, that animal may pull back because that smell is kind of strong. Building, so on top of the noises and the smells, just keep in mind this is a very big building. So some of these animals have not been anywhere outside of their home or they were on the streets before they came here. And there's a lot going on in the building with all the people and the animals and the smells. So just being here, it's not home, it's not the freedom of being on the streets. So they're going to be stressed by simply just being in the building. Recent events, what did that animal go before you came? So for instance, was it just medicated and now you need to move it? Also, what was it doing before it came to us? Was it laying on someone's couch and now it's in a kennel? Was it roaming the streets and just got trapped and now it's here in the shelter? So that event can really affect the stress that we see in the animal. And then lastly is the individual stress threshold. So everybody, just like people, animals have different levels of stress that they can tolerate. Animals that were well socialized may be able to handle change a little better than that 10-year-old cat that's been in one place its whole life and now is in a shelter. They may not be able to handle as much. Okay, so now let's talk about specifically cat-safe animal handling. So these are just some of the objectives we're going to do today. We're going to talk about that cat body language, which is often based on that emotional state. We're going to talk about our body language, getting a cat out of its kennel, transporting cats within the shelter, loose cats, cat bites, and then we'll go over some equipment to help prevent some of those cat bites. Okay, so the first cat we're going to talk about is what we like to refer to as the comfortable cat. So when you are looking at a cat and its body postures, you are looking at the whole cat from all the way to the head, all the way to the tip of the tail. Everything about that cat is going to tell you something. So for a comfortable cat, you will often see that classic meatloaf position, like you see that little guy, black and white cat. Basically think about it as everything's nice and tight that you can essentially pick it up and put it in a little loaf pan. The tail is going to be relaxed, motionless, or it might be standing up and give you that nice little question mark tail with a slight wave. Eyes are going to be soft. They're going to be that classic cat eye when you think of it. Heavy eyelids, partly closed, also going to be blinking. Ears are going to be relaxed, motionless, in that neutral posture. Back, so what they may do with their back is they may sway it towards you, inviting a pet. They're going to be potentially headbutting you if you offer your hand. They're going to be kneading, and they're going to be engaging in normal activities. So playing, grooming, sleeping, eating, drinking, all those great things. And that's what we want a cat to do. Sometimes when a cat gets stressed in a shelter environment, they stop doing some of those. They stop eating, they stop drinking. And so we really want to make sure for that stress level that they are doing those things. And if we see those things, it can lead to us thinking that it's more of a comfortable cat. Vocalizations are going to be those soft, inviting meows, and then that purring, especially when you are petting. So in this picture, you can kind of see some of those postures. So you see the meatloaf position. You see the eyes, they look more cat-like. You can see a little more dilation, but this is a picture. But so looking more at the shape of the eyes. The ears are up and neutral. So you just don't see a lot of tension in this guy. That kind of leads you to think that this is a more comfortable cat. Okay, the next type of cat is that anxious cat. So this is a cat that is not going to be in meatloaf because it needs to be able to move away. So often these eyes are just crouched down. They may be curled up. If they're curled up, they're kind of curled up a little tight to protect that abdomen. Tail, it may be unmoving. It may just be kind of pulled tight, but it also may be moving, just kind of the tip may be moving back and forth. Eyes are going to be fully open, so you're going to have those big white saucers, but their pupils are only going to be partially dilated, so you're still going to see a good amount of color. Ears are going to be erect and often moving, so they're just trying to pick up every sound that's around them. Movement, if they do move at all, they're going to be a little bit more cautious about it, a little slower. So they may approach you, but they may kind of hug the walls as they do that. They're going to allow you to pick up, but they're going to be tense about it. And when petting, especially on their back, you may find that skin start to ripple under your hands. So in this picture, you can kind of see the crouch position. The eyes are wide. You still see some of that color, so not full dilation. But this guy just looks a little bit more tense and rigid than that last picture. Okay, now let's move on to fearful cat. So this is the common cat that we see in a shelter, just with all the stress that they're going through. So these guys are often curled up pretty tight, or they may be, if they have a shoebox, down really low in their shoebox. Their tail's often really tight to them as well if they're curled up. But sometimes if they aren't curled up, you may see that tail and it might be a little bit more poofed up, like that little guy on the bottom, how his whole body is really poofed up. Eyes are going to be fully open and usually full dilation. So you're not going to see a lot of color. And they're usually going to be staring at you and just seeing what you're doing. Ears may start to go to the side. So we call those airplane ears. Think of little wings. So going straight out to the side. And if they are standing up, they may start to arch their back, that classic Halloween cat where they're just making themselves look a little bit bigger. Other things about a fearful cat, they aren't going to move a lot. If they do move, it's going to be very, very stiff. As they do, they may take a step forward, take a step back. They may, again, not be moving at all, be frozen. However, sometimes with these guys, you may also see more of a frantic attempt to escape. So when we think of these guys, we often think of those little, what we call popcorn kittens. So a kitten that's just so nervous that it's basically just bouncing all over the place in a kennel. Its goal is to get out of the kennel, but it's just so stressed out that it's not really thinking about it. Increased respiration, they may start to drool, and then you will see some trembling. It could be full body, it could just be, parts. You may see like their head start to move around. Vocalizations, hissing, growling, Purring, they may purr. So keep in mind, purring is not just an indicator of a happy, comfortable cat. Some cats, when they are stressed out and fearful, may start to purr. So looking again at the whole cat from the front to the end, just making sure that that cat is not just purring because it's comfortable, that you're still being mindful of those other postures. And then these guys are quick to meow. Often with a stress meow, it's going to be a little deeper, sometimes kind of drawn out. So here in this picture, you can see kind of the crouched body. The eyes are really wide, fully dilated, tail pulled really tight. So you just see a lot of tension in this cat. Okay, now let's talk about our last type of cat. This is what we call the aggressive cat. So the first aggressive cat we're going to talk about was what we call offensively. So we do get these cats in the shelter. They're usually the ones that the first few days are just so stressed out that as soon as somebody enters the room, even without ever engaging with them, you usually hear them. They're in their kennel. They're often screaming at you. So if you were to see this cat, you're going to see them standing up. Their hindquarters are going to be raised. Think about it in a position to be able to move forward. Their tail is going to be puffed up and often just lashing all over the place. Often you'll be hearing it hitting the side of the kennel. Eyes are going to be fully open, fully dilated pupils, and staring. And their ears, instead of being turned to the side, are going to be turned back. Movement is going to be pretty explosive with these guys. They're going to be the ones that are quick to lunge, swat, grab, or bite. And then again, their vocalizations, hiss, growl, and that classic scream. So often when you enter that room, you'll hear that scream. These guys are usually covered with a curtain to try to minimize some of that visual stimulation in hopes of keeping their stress level down. The other type of aggressive cat we see is usually the defensive cat. So this is that fearful cat that if pushed for interaction will become aggressive. So these guys, again, if cornered, will most likely roll onto their back. So this is the first reason why we don't want you to pet bellies, because a fearful cat showing its belly is more just exposing all of its defenses and is going to grab and potentially bite you. Hindquarters may also be raised in these guys, more in that position, ready to move either forward or run away. Tail puffed up, eyes fully open, fully dilated, staring, and their ears are often just pulled straight back on their head. These guys may also grab things if offered, to pull to their mouth to bite. They may also lunge at you, but it's more of an attempt to get you to go away. Vocalizations are those classic hiss and growl. Okay, so now let's move on to a cat that is often misinterpreted as aggressive, and that's that overstimulated cat. So we see a lot of overstimulated cats in this environment, especially ones that have been sitting for a while. So overstimulation, simplest terms, is just an overreaction to stimulus, usually during petting and play. Some signs to look for are that tail moving, so it could be just a tip, but again, the whole thing could be moving. Skin will also ripple when you pet them on their back. Their eyes are usually fully dilated, ears turned back, rolling onto your back. So this is the other reason that we don't want you to pet a cat's belly. An overstimulated cat that may look comfortable is rolling on the ground with their back is still not an invitation for you to come and pet their belly. They will usually escalate and try to bite you in that situation. When petting, you may notice that they're kind of tracking your hand. So every time you go to pet their back, they look back at your hand. They may also be quick to turn and push their head into your hand. So every time you pet their back, they turn around to try to put your hand back onto their head. And these guys are usually pretty vocal. So anytime someone's near them, they're vocal. Sometimes they may be even pawing out like that picture. Why cats become overstimulated, simplest terms, is just frustration. So especially in a shelter, they're just sitting day after day. They're not really getting the interactions that they would get in a home environment. And so that frustration is just building up, which is why petting or play is the thing that pushes them over. The thing to keep in mind is all cats can become overstimulated. What differs is what escalation. So some cats will only ever twitch their tail. Others will go to the point of hissing, growling, swatting at you, or even trying to bite you. So when it comes to that aspect, because we don't always know what that escalation would be, we want to be really mindful of those initial overstim body languages, like the tip of the tail moving. So that is everything when it comes to cat body language. So we do have this little handy dandy table that kind of breaks it down. Because remember, the thing to keep in mind about cat body language is, one, behavior is fluid, so things are always changing. But sometimes there's going to be some conflicting postures seen. So when it comes to cats, you really just want to look at what the majority of the cat is showing you. So again, if that cat is purring, but showing you a lot of tension, then it's more likely that cat is fearful and stressed, not that he's comfortable with you petting him. So really make sure that you're keeping in mind all the postures when you're engaging with animals, and in cats in particular. Okay, so now we're going to talk about a few other postures that it's worth it to keep in mind when you're engaging with cats. And these are what we call calming signals. So these are things that cats do to kind of calm themselves down when they are in a situation they perceive as threatening. So this is common for humans too. Some things, people twirl their hair, they kind of play with their fingers on, doodle, things that when they're stressed, they want to try to put that energy into something else. So some common things that cats do: lip licking, grooming, scratching, and a classic shake off. So if you see these things when you're interacting with a cat, it's just, again, something to be mindful of, that you may be pushing that cat over a threshold, and you may just need to give that cat a little bit of space. So cats' natural responses to a threat are going to be fight, freeze, and flee. Unfortunately, when they're in a shelter, we do take away one of those perceived responses, and that's the ability to flee. So that's why often cats will choose either to fight or freeze. So keep that in mind, that they don't always feel like they can run away, so they may escalate quickly to that fight aspect. So let's take a look at this cat. So this cat got out of its kennel, and we obviously need to put this cat back, and we're kind of blocking its path so it doesn't really have that opportunity to flee. So the first things you want to keep in mind is, what is the cat already showing you? So you notice the eyes are really big, fully dilated, it's kind of puffed up, it's pulled really tight, and it's staring at you. So again, we can't leave this cat out, so we take a step closer. So now you see some changes. The ears are fully flattened at this point. The cat is still staring, eyes are still fully dilated, still really puffed up. So again, we can't leave this cat out, so we take a final step forward. And now you see a little bit of changes in postures. So the cat is sitting up, he's kind of pulled himself back more in the corner. The ears are pulled down a little bit tighter. The eyes are still fully open and fully dilated, but you can kind of see this cat is looking in a different direction. So in this situation, I would perceive this cat as a cat that actually wants to run away, has a paw kind of lifted, and my guess is the cat would probably go up. Sometimes these cats will try to climb the kennels to get away from you. If this cat was standing up, paw raised, and was facing towards me, I'd be more inclined to think that the cat was actually going to come at me. So definitely make sure that you are seeing these postures and you are acting accordingly, because a cat that looks like he's about to launch at me, if I keep moving forward, I'm probably going to push him over. This cat, though, he's not going to come at me maybe, but he's still going to run away. So I might want to change my tactics to try to find a better way to catch this loose cat and put him back in his kennel. Okay, so now we're going to talk about our body language. So again, this is how you should act, especially when you're seeing those changes in postures. So some things to keep in mind is you just want to slow down. So again, some cats are going to be really nervous in this environment, and if you rush through cleaning them, medicating them, you're going to push them over threshold. But if you can kind of just slow down with them, you will make up your time with another cat that's doing a lot better, that's more friendly, engaging. Always allow the cat a chance to initiate the engagement. So especially if you have to handle the cat, if you can offer your hand and let them come up and at least sniff it. If they can go one step further and headbutt it, great, but at least allowing them to make that choice. And if they don't make that choice, then you can alter how you're going to go in and potentially pick up that cat. Avoid any direct eye contact. Look at them, look away, look at them, do some heavy blinks. Talk to them again in those soft tones. Observe their body postures, act accordingly. Making sure to keep in mind, what are they showing you? Are they showing you what we would consider distance decreasing? So they do want to engage those comfortable postures. Or are they showing you more distance increasing, where they would rather you go away? So the anxious, fearful, aggressive postures. So being able to read those and then act accordingly is going to be really important. Some other things to keep in mind. So something to help you kind of slow down is something we call whoa, which we're gonna kind of practice here in a second. The main thing again is even before you open that kennel door, look at those postures. What is that cat already telling you? When you open the door, what changes in postures have occurred? What is the cat telling you now? That way you can again alter how you're about to interact with that cat. Again, always let the cat approach you if possible. When opening the door, another great thing to keep in mind is even though we take away that perceived perception of being able to flee, if you can give them that idea back, so just keeping that kennel door, don't crowd it. If they think they can get away, they're less likely to try to get away. If they feel like they only have a small little window, they may still try it, and then unfortunately they're going to be running at you. Obviously, if you have a cat that has a door darter sign, then that cat is going to take every opportunity to run out. But any other cat that doesn't have a door darter sign, having that idea that they can get away may help them from trying to get away. When engaging, especially if you're seeing fearful, anxious postures, don't offer your hand. Offer something else instead. Offer a pin, offer a tongue depressor, something that will allow them, if they were to escalate, they would bite that instead of your hand. When interacting with the cat, be aware of what the cat sees and hears. Maybe the neighbor cat is hissing and is up front. So if your cat were to come to the front, would that escalate your cat? So really be mindful of that, especially if you're also going to pick up that cat. When you pick them up, what are they going to see and hear as you move them around? And then when in doubt, don't proceed, especially if you are new to working with cats and you don't feel very comfortable with your skills of reading body postures. It is okay to come back to that cat later or get some help when you come back. You know, if you need to medicate, you can always get another staff member who maybe had success before you. Okay, so let's talk about whoa. So whoa just simply means watch the cat, observe the body language, assess what you see, and act accordingly, being decrease the distance or increase the distance. So now we are going to practice and watch a video that I'm going to have you watch, and then we'll talk about it.
What do you think? Oh, that's nice. Maybe the cat whisperer shouldn't do this. I think all cats love me.
Okay, so you can see the lady has offered her hand and given the cat a chance to initiate. So she's kind of sniffing it. Does a little lip lick there, but then head butts. And so she made that initiated contact, so then you can keep petting. Here she's arching into the pet. So this is not that Halloween cat. This is a cat that is actually enjoying petting. But here you can kind of start to see she is showing a little bit over stem. So take a look at that tail. You can see the tip starting to move. And here, every time she kind of starts to pet the back, she moves her head back a little bit, kind of headbutts the lady's arm. So often people think this is just the cat wanting more pets, and that may be the case, but if you notice, like right here, the cat is doing it specifically when you are petting the body. Definitely really be mindful of that, especially if you're seeing other signs of overstim, like the tip of the tail is starting to twitch. Because if you keep petting, you might push this cat over that threshold and escalate it beyond just twitching its tail. So again, just making sure that you are taking a look at the body postures and then assessing what you see. Comfortable, anxious, fearful, aggressive. So in this case, I would consider that cat generally a comfortable cat, but starting to show some signs of overstim. So the main thing for you is just where are you petting? You know, can you alter that? And keep in mind, if you have to do more than just pet a cat, like you have to medicate, if you pet that cat too much, you run the risk of overstimulating. And then when you go to medicate or you go to vaccinate, it may not go as smooth. So if you're starting to know those signs pretty early on, maybe just stop the petting component, you know, get done what you have to do and kind of see how the cat does from there. If a cat does escalate too much in overstim, unfortunately, the best thing to do is just walk away. Okay, so now let's take a look at another video.
Aww, or at least anxious.
Yeah, I think more anxious. Kitty, 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 kitty.
Okay, so you kind of see how she's moving a little slower. She does the little lip lick there. She's starting to come down. Here's a hiss. So again, kind of a little uncomfortable with this person just standing in front. Little lip lick again. Little soft meow there. Eyes are big, but not fully dilated. You still see some good color. Here she kind of starts to back up. So she was thinking about coming down, but she has changed her mind. Here she does a nice little long stretch. So we didn't really talk about this, but cats, when they are feeling a little bit more comfortable and not threatened, will do that kind of stretch out. So that's a good sign. She did shake off a little though, so still kind of trying to get rid of that stress she's feeling. So again, all those body postures that we just observed, looking at what this cat is showing you: comfortable, anxious, fearful, aggressive. So for this guy, I would lean more towards anxious. So she was kind of interested to begin with, but then as she kind of moved forward, she changed her mind. She did do the hiss. She then turned back around. She started to kind of calm herself down. But remember, we didn't open the door yet. So if we were to open this door, would this cat remain anxious, or would we kind of tip the scales and go more towards fearful? So how you act is going to be based on that. In this situation, if we're just checking the feed sheet, we're not really doing much with the cat, then we don't really have to do a lot. But if we're going to then open that kennel door, we've already seen how anxious she is. So we want to be really mindful, making sure we go really slow, we talk softly, maybe allow her to initiate the engagement. And if she chooses not to, if we don't actually have to engage with her, we don't have to pick her up, then maybe we just clean her kennel and move on. Okay, so we're going to watch one more. Okay, so as you saw, this video is pretty quick, and the cat doesn't do a lot, but it does still show a lot. So frozen, eyes wide, fully dilated, staring the entire time. If you were to watch the breathing, you would see a little bit of increased respiration. So of the types of cats, comfortable, anxious, fearful, aggressive, this cat I would definitely say is fearful. Again, how you act is going to be important to what you need to do with the cat. It's frozen right now. You might be able to clean around it just fine. But if you had to actually interact with this cat, maybe medicate it or get it out for an evaluation, the cat may not remain frozen. The cat may, pull back, hiss, growl, may also become a little more explosive and just start kind of running around the kennel to get out. So really see what you see when you first get there, but then looking at what you have to do, just watching for any changes. If you're off your hand, does the cat pull back or does it just stay there? And then continually act accordingly based on what the cat is showing you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about how to interact with an overstim cat. We kind of talked about it with the friendly colony cat. The main thing for overstim is stop petting. So that petting is what's pushing it over its threshold. So we want to make sure we stop that interaction. Allow the cat time to relax. So unfortunately, this may not be a couple minutes. This may be something where you need to completely walk away, especially if the cat's escalated to the point of hissing, growling, swatting, or trying to bite. We really need to give that cat time to adjust. If you do have to get something done in that moment with that cat, you may need to pull out your safety equipment, a shield or something to hold that cat back while you clean. Do let us know about these types of cats. There are things that we can do from a behavior perspective. We can enroll it in a program. We can do clicker training, play therapy, things that just definitely gives it an outlet. We will also make sure that we have appropriate restrictions. For example, sometimes kids, young kids aren't reading those signals, so we may not want to send that kind of cat home to a family with young kids. We may also kind of look at it from, is it truly a behavior adoption candidate? Because if a cat is escalating to the point of biting, we may have to figure out a different plan. Some of these guys, these overstim guys that do actually escalate to biting, do make really good working cats, so we'll look at it from that perspective. The best way to get a cat to behavior is going to either be to put it on behavior review or one of those CNC, the cats and clickers hold. Okay, so now we're going to talk about more of that interaction, that hands-on stuff, and just the proper technique of doing those. So let's start with how to hold a cat. So the classic things we want you to do is the football hold. The things we don't want you to do is you don't ever want to hold a cat by its scruff alone, and then try not to hold a cat like a baby on its back. Your own cat at home may appreciate that, but that's something that we don't want to do here. Okay, so in just a second, I will show you the football hold, but some tips I want to give you real quick is, again, when you are holding a cat, make sure that you are mindful of what it sees and hears. Don't hold it too close to another kennel. If you have a cat out and a dog is walking by an area, that could also scare that cat. And then obviously, again, what we talked about, holding cat on the back like a baby, what you do at home is not necessarily going to work here. The lady with the cat on his shoulders, we want to try to avoid that. Sometimes cats will jump up there. Kittens will climb up your legs and try to get up high, but that could easily go downhill quickly and can result in injury, be it scratches or bites. So make sure that you are doing the classic football hold to keep a really good hold on that cat. So let's talk about that. So when you do the football hold, the main thing is you just really want to support all of the cat. You're going to be holding on to all of their defenses, so their front claws, their back claws, and their head. The football hold also allows you to keep the cat down and away from your face. It gives you a lot of more control. So let me show you this video real quick, and we'll kind of talk about the main points. So the main thing that you're trying to do is you're trying to support that cat. So having it all on one side is going to be really important. So you'll have the weight on there. And then that same side of your hand is also going to be controlling some of the defenses. So the main side that the cat's on, you're going to be grabbing those front feet. And then with the opposite hand, the one that crosses over your body, that is the one that you are going to put on the back of the neck. So if you needed to scruff, you can easily scruff. So again, it's just a matter of having good control. So if you see it with this guy, you got the hand that it's on, you got the front hold. It's nice and tucked for those back feet. You can kind of push them up. And then the one that crosses my body is just holding on to that scrub. So again, from this side, so it's a lot of support. And again, it keeps it away from my body. So I'll just have you watch that video one more time. Okay, so in line with that football hold, we also wanted just to talk a little bit of how to pick up a cat in certain situations. So when it comes to getting cat out of a kennel, as you've seen, kennels are pretty small, and so you don't have a lot of room to work with. We still want you to ultimately do that classic football hold, and so you got to be mindful of where the cat is. Is it on a shelf, or is it, right at the front, or is it in the back that you have to practically climb into the kennel? So anytime you can allow the cat, again, to approach you is going to be helpful. just know that the cat isn't always going to align with the side that you're most comfortable. So what I mean by that is I'm right-handed. So when I pick up a cat, I like to have that right hand on the scruff because I feel more supported in my dominant hand. But that's not always going to happen in a kennel. Sometimes the cat is going to line up the other way where I specifically would have to use my left hand on the scruff. And so definitely get comfortable picking up cats on both sides. But if you can get the cat to approach and then using your hands get them to move along the side that you are comfortable with, that may make it easier for you. Go slow. Once they get there, you don't want to just jump in and try to pick them up. If they aren't approaching you, again, remember to offer them something else. So if they are nervous and they were to try to bite or swat, they would swat at that. It's okay to pet them before you move to pick them up, but just remember we don't want to overstimulate them with too much petting. And then before you go pick up, definitely just move your hands in for the appropriate. If you try to pick up in a weird way with both hands and then try to change your hands for the appropriate hold, it's just not going to work. And then one thing we really want to remind you guys is, yes, you have the ability to scruff, and please use it when needed, but don't automatically go in and try to scruff every cat, because that can really make things worse. Before you even have a chance to pick up that cat, they may really react to that scruffing. So really only scruff if you have to. So let's go ahead and watch this video real quick. So again, really just supporting, and I was able to get this cat to come out closer to the front for a pickup. Okay, so what if a cat is on a shelf and not in the main part of the kennel like that last cat? So this is a little bit more trickier because sometimes you're not going to be able to get in there and do a good solid football hold from the shelf. If you can, great. But some cats are going to be a little bit bigger, maybe they're a little overweight, and there's no way you're going to be able to pick them just up from the shelf. So it is okay to move them to the floor level of the kennel and then pick them up. So you may find that you pick them up in a weird way, grasp their body to bring them down to the bottom. That is okay, but then immediately turn your hands and use that classic football hold to pick them up. So we can show you right here. So again, I picked up the cat in a weird way, but I immediately brought it down to the kennel floor, and then I put my hands in the appropriate place for that football hold. So again, it's okay to put the cat in a position to make it easier to pick them up. But ultimately, I still want to do that football hold. The main thing to keep in mind if you have to pull a cat down from a shelf is if you pull the cat down from the shelf and then you kind of pull your hands back, the cat may move to the back or may jump on the shelf. So it all needs to be a nice, solid, fluid motion of I bring my cat down and then I immediately go to pick it up. Because if I give my cat too much freedom, it may prove to be too challenging to pick it up. I may ultimately have to come back and pick it up later. Okay, so in line with picking up cats, we do want to remind you about transporting a cat in a carrier. So always use a carrier. So when I pick up a cat, I need to have some sort of intention in mind, be it I take it to the middle table to do a medical exam, or I immediately put it in the carrier to take it to another room, or to healthcare to get an exam, but it's going to come back. We do recommend top loaders if possible. They are the easiest. You're able to just kind of lift that top and put your cat in. If you are able to take some of the stuff with the cat, please do. It is great for stress reduction if the stuff already smells like it. Obviously, if you're bringing a cat from a quarantine room, they can't have their supplies. If you are moving a bunch of cats all at the same time for healthcare or ready weight, and you kind of have to stack those cats on top of each other and potentially step away from them to go into another room to grab a cat, please try to remember to cover those cats with towels, especially areas like lower cats. There's a lot of people and dogs walking by, so we just want to kind of minimize the stress and minimize what they see before they're transported to their new area. So if you have a cat that isn't going into a carrier really well, or you don't have a top loader to put the cat in, there is a trick that you can use. So one thing, make sure that you pick a carrier that is a good size for your cat. If the carrier is the same size as your cat, your cat is definitely going to struggle. So if you find a good enough carrier, especially if you have an overweight cat, it's going to go a little bit smoother. But basically what you do if you don't have a top loader is you can easily take your carrier, you just kind of set it upright, and then when you pick up your cat, you're gonna actually put it in backwards so that it doesn't see it coming. If you were to go in forward, they would put their paws out and they would really resist going in. So by coming in backwards, they're not able to see it. You get them in, you shut the door, and then you can put the carrier down. So let's show you that video. So again, she doesn't really know it's coming, so she doesn't fight it, able to slip her in, shut the door, and put it down. So this is great if you don't have a top loader, but also if your carrier isn't really that big and your cat's more likely gonna fight if you were to try to put it in forward. Okay, so now let's move on to a loose cat. So loose cats do happen. You know, we deal with a lot of different types of cats, a lot of stressed out cats, and if they can flee, many of them will try. So it does happen. Don't stress out about it. Don't panic. All of our rooms are contained for a reason so that we can easily pick up these cats and put them back into their kennels. So if you are holding onto a cat and it starts to struggle, you can try, tighten up, do the scruff, pull in your hands, really tighten up on the cat. But sometimes your cat's just struggling too much. It is okay to let them out of your arms. They're gonna just drop to the floor. Often they are going to, run from there if they're really stressed, or they may just jump around. Say it's an overstim cat that just got stressed out. They may stay near you, but again, it is contained, so you don't need to worry about it. Please try not to grab the cat as it's getting away from you, and definitely don't chase the cat around the room. You are gonna make it a lot more stress and a lot harder for you to ultimately catch that cat. If it is hiding, go ahead and let the cat hide, let the cat calm down. Usually if it's in an area that has the gaps underneath the kennel, that's most likely where they're going to get. And that can be a little challenging. So as they're hiding and calming down, you can kind of start to devise a little plan. Are you gonna need equipment? Are you gonna need someone to help you? So the first thing to keep in mind is what we call pause. So you'll see these signs around all the different cat rooms. So pause just stands for pause and plan, ask for help, work through the plan, safely rekennel the loose cat. So if you can kind of, again, just slow down, get the equipment, get the help that you need. It doesn't mean it's gonna go super smooth, but at least you'll have the support and ultimately you'll be able to get that cat in. When engaging with a cat, especially if it's a fearful cat, make sure that you stay calm, that you remember all those body postures you're seeing, and that you are acting accordingly. Don't stare at it, offer your side, things like that. Other things we want to remind you about is we do have those signs on the doors for loose animal or okay to enter. So try, even though you're going to be in a panic potential moment, try to remember to change those signs. That's going to be really important so people aren't trying to walk in if you have that cat that's running around. So change that sign to loose animal, and then when the cat is back in its kennel, make sure you change that sign back to okay to enter. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to cat bites. So cat bites are something that can happen with loose animals. So making sure that you are slowing down, you're not rushing through, you're not trying to grab. Some other times that bites can happen, mishandling. So if you are holding an animal for a blood draw or a vaccine or something, maybe improper restraint, you don't have a really good hold, that cat may struggle through and turn around and be able to bite. Rushing, so if you got a lot to do and you're just kind of pushing through each cat, you may push a cat too far and cause them to turn to bite. And then overstimulation, so not paying attention to those changes in body postures, and they escalate to the point of biting you. We do want to talk about something with you guys called bite inhibition. So the main thing to keep in mind is if a cat wants to bite you, they will. So a lot of people think, well, I was able to pull my hand away in time. That's not true. If the cat really wanted to bite you, they would bite you. The other thing about bite inhibition is cats have the ability to apply a lot of pressure or a little bit of pressure. So again, if they want to bite to break skin, they will. Sometimes though, they just bite and they leave the little indentations. And again, that's all based on the pressure they chose to apply. So just some more reasons that bites occur from cats in the shelter is just we deal with a lot of fearful, a lot of unsocial trapped cats, so haven't had a lot of human interaction. There is this perception too that, cats are small and I can handle them. And so sometimes we push through even though we're seeing those obvious postures. A lot of people have more experience with dogs and cats, so maybe they're not reading those postures very well. And then sometimes just taking the aggression component not as serious. So think of a cute little kitten that's doing that hiss-spit lunge. And then you have a Rottweiler who's growling and baring teeth. People are going to definitely stay away from that Rottweiler, but they may not stay away from that kitten because they think it's a cute little feisty, spicy kitten. But we still need to make sure that we are taking those postures, what that cat is showing us, serious, because even a kitten bite can still be serious for you. It can easily get infected. So we want to make sure that we're not taking it any less serious than we would a dog bite. Some other things to keep in mind is cats become agitated quickly, overstimulated quickly, and it does take them time to settle back down. So even though you may have not done much with that cat, somebody else may have just come along, medicated, evaluated, gave it a vaccine, and now you're interacting with cat, and that cat escalates on you based on what just happened because it didn't have a chance to settle. Cats also do give warning signs, but sometimes they are so subtle and hard to see that the cat turns and bites, and it feels like it was out of nowhere, but the cat did show something. A common one is if they kind of look away from you and their eyes got really big, then they may turn and bite, and you didn't see them look away and the eyes get big. All you saw was them turn and bite. The other thing we want to let you know is that whole idea of you pulled your hand away in time is, again, that is not true. If you kind of look at these numbers, the time it takes a human to respond from, their hand to their brain and back, that cat would have already bitten you in that time. So it's not a matter of trying to be faster than the cat. It's a matter of reading that cat and acting accordingly so you can help prevent the bite from occurring. What to do if bitten? So the most important step is to take care of yourself. So cat bites can easily get infected. What happens is they, bite you and they get those little needle pricks and it goes down into your skin. And then because it's pretty small, it can seal up and all that bacteria is going to be in that bite. So the most important thing for you is to take care of yourself. You really want to scrub it. You really want to make it bleed. So go find yourself a first aid kit. Veterinary Services also has some different scrubs that you can go and scrub it really good. If the cat is obviously loose, we do need to secure it. If the cat is also in an available kennel, it does need to be moved to a different kennel. So definitely just communicate that with your fellow staff members. Go to your manager, make sure to fill out a bite report. All cat bites need to be reported. Please report it. It's important for you to make sure that you're getting proper care, but it is something that we need to know with the cats. Even if it was something that you felt you could have prevented, we need to make sure that we're still reporting these. And then just keep in mind that you will have to go to urgent care. All cat bites have to go to urgent care, even if it's just a small little bite. And that's, again, it's just a higher risk of infection. And if it starts even very small, it can easily spread. And we just want to keep you guys safe and healthy. Okay, so again, just to prevent bites, the main thing is reading those body postures. If you can kind of see the changes that are about to occur and act differently, you may be able to keep that cat from going over the threshold. Avoid handling a cat that you aren't supposed to. So if you're walking around and you see a cute little kitten and you're like, ooh, I want to pet you, it may start off okay, but again, if that kitten overstimulates and then bites you, now that kitten has to go on a 10-day bite quarantine. So if you don't have to engage with that cat, please avoid handling it. Practice proper restraint. So if you're not very comfortable handling a cat, then practice that. When you're done doing your other assignments, go up front and pick up adoptable cats. Not all of them will love being picked up, but you definitely know that we have deemed them safe enough to be up for adoption. So go practice picking them up, practice picking up on both sides so that when you're in a position to pick up a cat in the back of the house, you're going to feel comfortable. Practice, even doing some restraint with cats if you're in a position like back in 315, or if you're going to be helping with vaccinations and stuff, practice even those restraint techniques. Obviously, slow down, again, where you can, slow down with those cats that are showing you some concerning behaviors, slow down. That way you don't push them over. And then definitely make sure to use your safety equipment. This is here to help you, to help your job be a little bit easier, but it's also to keep you safe. Okay, so let's actually go through our safety equipment. hopefully you've had a chance in your time here of seeing some of these items, if not using some of them. So these are all what we call approved safety equipment. So please make sure that you are using these and only these. Don't bring anything from home and try to use it. These are definitely approved and have been practiced, so we know they are safe. So the first one we're going to talk about is towels. So we do always recommend that you start with a towel. And the reason being is a towel is just less invasive. It's not as scary as if you were to go and get a net. So try to use a towel to begin with. When it comes to restraining cats using a towel, there's a lot of great restraints out there. This video in particular that I'm going to show you in a second is going to be using a towel to do a blanket wrap, sometimes called a burrito wrap. And so using those kind of resources to be able to secure your cat so that you can easily, get to the face or get to the back. There's a lot of different wraps that you can use to be able to still engage with the cat, but safely. So here's this video.
It's important to practice these techniques on a stuffed animal first.
And then this one, I'm going to show you in a second. This is how to use towels in other areas. So not just to wrap a cat up to be able to medicate or something like that. Sometimes just being able to, get a towel over a cat to make it feel, less scared, that you can even just maneuver. In this video, you'll see that she is getting a cat out of a carrier and the cat's already stressed out. And so she even goes as far as taking the carrier apart and then using the towel to just kind of secure the cat. Often when cats, they're fully encased in a towel, they do, less stress because they aren't seeing and hearing everything that's going on. Sometimes though, it's just getting a towel, wrapping it around and then just putting that cat into a kennel or into carrier. Sometimes you can go as far as what she did and be able to actually engage with the cat once it's still secure in that towel. So you kind of have to look at the situation and what you need to do and how you want to use this towel. So here's this video.
Trap.
Where do you want it here?
Fearful cats who have not yet had many bad experiences at the veterinary hospital are often easy to handle. If you provide them with the ability to hide, you move slowly and calmly, and you control their movements so they don't go into escape mode, they'll often remain stationary. Those cats that have repeatedly been pushed to hiss or struggle are much harder to handle. We're able to get this cat out of the carrier by taking the top off and covering her with towels. I use 2 towels here for safety purposes, although I could choose to use gloves instead of a second towel. Once covered, this cat feels safer and does not try to escape when I lift her by grasping her body just behind her front legs. By covering her head and placing my hand on her neck just behind her head, I'm able to hold her still so I can listen to her heart and palpate her abdomen. Alternatively, a technician could place a hand on her neck. We can also take blood from her medial saphenous. Now we let her walk back into her carrier. She's allowing me to reach in and pet her.
Okay, so the next approved thing is going to be cat gloves. So when do we use cat gloves? So anytime you have a really stressed out, fractious cat, it's a good idea to have something that you can cover your hands with and make sure that if that cat bites, it's not gonna be able to bite your hands. So how to use it, just know you don't have a lot of dexterity, so you're really just kind of holding the cat like this, being able to pick it up. So you're not gonna be able to hold on. So it's more of I just pick up, put it in. I can help try to usher it into the carrier, something like that. Where to find these things? The best place to go is Pet Admissions. They have a few different ones. So if you are gonna be needing it and you're not in Pet Admissions, go ahead and just head to Pet Admissions and ask them about using their cat gloves. Okay, so the next thing we're talking about is cat nets. So there's two types of cat nets. There is the butterfly cat net and the clam shell. They do get their name from kind of how they look, and I'm gonna show you how to use those in just a second. So when you are grabbing a cat net, you want to think about, again, what's the situation that I need this cat net and which net would be most appropriate. So your butterfly net is going to work well in more open areas, whereas your clamshell may do good in the actual kennel. Neither one of these guys work really well under a kennel because you only have that small gap, and neither of them open really well for that. But again, which net would work best for your given situation? What we encourage with any of these things is practice, practice, practice. So the first time a net has to be used, if you're not comfortable, have somebody else do it. But I would encourage you to then practice. We do have some of these stuffed animals that you can practice netting with, but also the next time that a cat needs to be net, go ahead and be the one that practices and just have someone with you that feels a little more comfortable on how to use it. That way they can kind of give you some pointers. Where to find these nets? There are a lot of places. So most of the cat rooms do actually have at least one of the net, if not both. You can also find these in Pet Admissions, our 315 area, and then Cage Wash. So let me show you how to use these nets. So the first one we're going to start with is the butterfly net. The main thing I want you to keep in mind is what she does initially with any butterfly net before you actually try to grab the cat. Make sure you actually zip the top of it, otherwise your cat is going to run out. So let's go ahead and watch this video.
And yeah, you can kind of shimmy over. The main thing is, yeah, we just don't want people to dump the cat.
So again, just securing that net. The main thing about this one is it does have that metal pole, so you don't want to be slamming it down on your cat. You just want to try to get in a position that you can quickly move it over without slamming it. And then a lot of times cats will run straight into the back, which is why you definitely want to close your net, but not always. Sometimes they kind of just remain frozen. So if you are in a position you have to use your hands, keep your hands away from the face, and then go ahead and lock it. Basically, you pull the little slider towards you. That's going to lock it. And then you can lock it even further by rolling the net, so that the cat can't run out either side. And then when transporting a cat in a net, we do recommend you put it on something. You don't want to just hold that net out as you walk around. Put it on a cart, cover it, and then take it to wherever you need to take it. So for your clamshell, the main thing to keep in mind is there is a small little Velcro lock on the very top of it. You want to make sure that Velcro lock is at the top and not on the side. Otherwise, you won't be able to lock it. And then with this one, you still want to be careful. You don't want to be going really quickly with the cat because it is surrounded in metal as well. So here you kind of just go slowly over it. Drop your cat down. See if there's any parts sticking out. So tails and feet, you can easily use your hand to push back in. Obviously, if the head's sticking out, you need to let the cat go. And then once the cat is secure, you do that Velcro lock, put it on a cart and take the cat wherever, or just take it back to its kennel and open it up in there. Okay, so next piece of equipment is going to be the grabbers. So the main thing the grabbers are used is for objects. So we don't want to use this for a cat. We don't want to push a cat away from it. We obviously never want to scruff a cat with it. So instead, we are using this for any inanimate object. So the litter box, the towel, the food, the water, or to open and shut that blue box hole. Make sure, again, not ever touching a cat. If a cat comes up to investigate it, that's okay. We just don't want to push the cat out of the way with him. And these can be found in all of the cat rooms. So either in the closet or hanging up on that metal cabinet. Okay, so next one is blue boxes. So blue boxes, what we use them for is a variety of different things. So you can use them for cleaning. You can use them to catch a loose cat. For sedation. So how you would use it for kind of those things is if a cat is in its blue box, you just shut that door and you can clean around it. If you have a loose cat, the great way to use these is go ahead and put it on the floor next to wherever kennel that cat is out. Remove that plexiglass. Make sure the small little hole is open so the cat doesn't run in and run out. And then sadly, this is usually a two-person job, so somebody needs to get down on the ground and kind of pressure that cat into the blue box. A lot of cats are looking for a place to run and hide, so it's usually easier than you think. There are those ones that get stuck behind the wheel or just refuse to go in it. But if you can, get them, pressure them to go in, and then just have that person shut the plexiglass. And then for sedation on the back, you can see on the bottom picture, there are some holes there that you can use a shield that you can push the cat back, and then you're able to poke through those holes, be either sedation for surgery or 3 and 5, or even for vaccinations. We can vaccinate that way as well. So there's benefits for both sides, for both parties involved. For people, it allows us to safely move an animal around, safely sedate, safely catch a loose cat. But for cats, it has its benefit too, and that is to provide that secure place, that secure dark place for them to actually hide. A lot of cats, when they're afraid, do want to find a place to hide. Something we do want to let you know is not all of these guys are blue. We do have gray, white, tan, but often people will refer to these as blue boxes because that used to be what we had, was just blue boxes. So again, the how is the main part. When the cat's secure, is just the little white flap door. Use that as best you can. And then obviously plexiglass would be more if I need to push in a shield or if I'm catching that loose cat. And then these can be found, the best place to go is to our cage wash rooms to see if there's any clean blue boxes in there. Okay, shield. So we kind of talked about a shield for blue boxes. So we do have different size shields. So they can be used in the kennel for cleaning, and then they can be used again for the blue box to kind of push a cat back. The benefits for people is allows you to easily maneuver. I can clean around while I'm holding my cat back with the shield. Again, I can push back and sedate if I have to. For cats, it just kind of provides that little barrier. So if you have a cat that, did that little hiss-spit lunge, you put that barrier between. That sometimes will reduce the stress of the cat because it's not like a hand is coming near it. It's just this shield. The first time it comes up, it's going to be a little stressed, but then it settles because nothing further is coming up. If you do have to use this in a kennel, we do recommend that you try to put your cat into the corner. And essentially what that means is I use it and I have it touching 2 walls. So it kind of locks my cat into place. And that's really important if you're going to be doing a lot of stuff in the kennel. So if I'm just coming in and grabbing one thing, then I can just place it right there and move. But if I have to pull everything out, by securing my cat in the corner, I'm able to freely do all that without having to keep putting the shield back over and over and over. These guys can be found in all the cat rooms, usually in the cabinets under the sink. Pet Emissions has some, 315 has those small ones, and then also Cage Wash might have some that were recently cleaned. And the main thing with these is just like with the grabbers, we don't want to be pushing cats out of the way. We more just want to bring it up to them and kind of slowly move it their way until they back up. So make sure you're not using it to physically move a cat around. Okay, so that is essentially safe cat handling. We just wanted to kind of do a final aspect of things to keep in mind. So as you are moving around and working with cats, there are also going to be other staff and other volunteers. And some of them just may not be as comfortable with cats as maybe you are. So definitely, offer advice, help where needed. And just remember everything you've learned in every different situation. So for instance, if you see a cat panicking, what's the situation that the cat is panicking? Are you trying to physically pick it up and it's just freaking out all over? Were you about to vaccinate it and it panicked? Is it panicking in the carrier that it just got put in? So if you're noticing that, obviously in the moment, don't try to keep doing what you're doing. A panic cat is more likely going to bite. And so giving that cat time to settle. Overstimulated cat, what are those postures that you are seeing? What level of threshold are you reaching? If you're just seeing mild things, that doesn't mean that you keep going, because you may push that cat too far. When we see those mild overstim signals, we want to be mindful. We want to potentially walk away, or we want to just get what we're doing. Like if we're, finishing up an eval, just get it over and done with it so we can let that cat settle. Know that if a cat is overstimulating, you may not be able to finish because it may reach that threshold, especially if you're in the midst of doing an eval or a healthcare exam. You may not be able to get through it all. Aggression, again, is it offensively aggressive? You just entered the space. Or is it defensively aggressive based on what you're about to do with that cat? So what is that cat showing you? How can you alter it? How can you help that cat be less stressed? Maybe again, you just come back later and hope that the cat has had a chance to settle back down. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time. If you do have any questions as a result of watching this video, please take the time to write them down. You can always email the behavior department. You can also always stop by and ask us those questions. But even as you're working with cats, if you had a weird cat show you something that you're just not quite sure what they did, then come talk to us. We can talk you through it, kind of explain things a little bit better to the best of our knowledge, and maybe help you when you see the situation again, be better prepared for it. So again, thank you so much for your time and have a good rest of your day.